31. We open with our Pledge of Allegiance.
Hello, good evening. I hope you're all doing well. I'm happy to introduce Christopher J. Stahula, who's a 6th grade student at New Brighton Middle School. And you've got some information in front of you on the certificate you're going to read. But when I put the word out there, hey, can any teachers want to nominate someone? I got a response in like 1 minute.
Yeah.
By Mr. Ryberg to nominate CJ, who goes by CJ. And so just getting to know CJ, it was an absolute best nomination as a 6th grader who came from Main Street, correct?
Yeah.
And you're going to read some things about CJ, but I just want to add a few things that he just mentioned to me in my ear that are not on the certificate, but he loves golf. And his favorite series is actually
The Lord of the Rings.
The Lord of the Rings. So it's
Ah.
on there, says something else, but it's actually The Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
So here we
Okay.
go. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now I'm gonna read the Soquel Union Elementary School District mission statement. Staff, students, parents, and the community help to ensure that each child develops the skills to be a responsible citizen in today's diverse world.
All right. Yeah, we got some questions. Did you memorize that, CJ? It looked like you did.
Yeah.
I remember
Yeah.
pledge allegiance, yeah.
Yeah, nice. We've got an award or a certificate of recognition.
Yeah,
We'll read it to you.
this is great. Christopher J. Stakula, a standout 6th grade student at NBMS, loves learning, especially about history. His passion for his humanities class shines bright, with a special interest in the Roman Empire and stories from the past. Enjoying books like Lord of the Rings, CJ combines his love for reading and history. He dreams of being a history professor one day. His dedication to his studies and his role in leading the Pledge of Allegiance showcase his commitment to excellence and make him a role model in our school community.
That's
Great.
right.
Cool, wow.
So, if you don't mind, we have some questions, and if you wanted to come pick a prize, we have one. If you have grab something.
Since I read this, do you mind if I start?
Yeah.
First of all, I'm super impressed that you memorized both of those. Our mission statement.
I remember the mission statement, just the pledge of allegiance.
Really? It looks like.
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Us too.
Yeah.
There we go. Another newscaster. Yeah.
Nothing less from a kid from Main Street. Awesome. Well, you had me with golf and Lord of the Rings. My son liked it so much, he is now reading The Fellowship of the Ring because he just finished The Hobbit. So I was wondering where you are in the series of The Lord of the Rings.
Right now I'm starting Two Towers. I just finished Fellowship of the Ring and just starting Two Towers.
That's great. That's great. What do you think? Do you have a favorite book? So did you like The Hobbit or are you kind of more into The Fellowship?
I think I like the Hobbit more.
Oh, okay. So you're Bilbo over Frodo right now.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. When did you get started into golf?
About, I want to say it was almost 3 years ago now. It was 9. I started learning about that. All the other sports, like just when I would finish doing baseball, so all the other sports would cancel it out, and I decided to try golf, and I liked it, and I've been playing ever since.
That's fantastic. I'll tell you right now, it is a lifelong skill. You will be so grateful that you picked it up earlier in life. That's awesome. Nice to meet you, Christopher.
So you're just starting with the Lords of the Rings right now, or have you read it before?
I've read it before.
Oh, okay, figure how many times? Once before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's impressive. I've only saw the movies. So you like history,
I like
Yes, sir.
history.
and then you like back into the Roman Empire,
Yeah,
right?
Roman, I would say ancient Rome is my favorite period.
Okay, any other periods you like to study?
I would say medieval Europe and also Shogunate Japan is also pretty
Oh,
cool.
wow, okay. You like time travel?
Mm. I mean, it's good power.
See, then you go back and explore the empires you're interested in. And Bears fan?
Oh yeah, my dad's from Chicago.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Hi, CJ. Last time we saw you last year, you talked to us a little bit about the history bee. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you mind telling us again? We got a newer board member here,
So
Ariel.
basically last year I did like this history bee. So got taught history bee in the country and I passed regionals and in the national finals I placed in the top 50% of students.
That's right. I know.
So is that like a spelling bee, but they ask you history questions?
It's more like they read out. So basically they want you to guess a certain historical thing and they clues get from more obscure clues to more common clues. And whoever guesses the question first gets a point. If you get the most points, if the top 3 people in regionals, if you have qualified.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember you coming and telling us, and I was like,
Right,
it's
yeah,
worth
yeah,
thinking
yeah, I remember
again
now.
and thinking about that, because that was the first time, I think that's the first time we've had
Yep.
a student participate in that competition, and you did so well. It was really inspiring. So thanks for reminding us about that. Is that something you'll do again, or was it only for elementary?
I think this year I've been just focusing on the school
Yeah,
but I think I'm going to do it next year.
nice. Very cool. Thank you. It's so good to see you.
And so tell me a little bit more about the golf that you play. Do you play on a regular basis? Is there kind of a team that you play with? Or
I don't play. I'll play golf team. I signed up for the MBMS golf team. It's like a couple hours ago.
Cool.
And I play every Friday.
Okay. The Hobbit was actually my favorite book when I was younger. I never read the rest of the Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit has stayed with me.
Gotta catch up now.
Yeah. It's nice to meet you.
Is Mr. Ryberg your history teacher?
Yeah.
Yeah?
He's my humanities teacher.
Oh, humanities. I was wondering what your favorite history project was that you've done at New Brighton this year.
I think would be honestly. I think it's my presentation on I've aced all my history tests, so that's my favorite part of humanities.
Well, it was so great to meet you, CJ, and nice to see you again. Would you like to take we got all sorts of little prizes here, and then you have a brother. Would you like to maybe bring something home for your brother? Somebody else in your family?
Sure, I'm gonna take.
All right.
CJ, you've
Thank-
gotten taller since you were here. No, I remember, but
Yeah.
you've gotten quite a bit taller now.
Good observation.
Thank you.
We do our best up here. We
Yeah.
really do.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, thank
Yeah, I
you
love it
so
when you
much
come
for
back.
starting off our meeting. It's our favorite way to start off our meeting with a student. And thank you so much for giving us a good kickoff.
Yes.
I'm gonna get a photo of you. All right, come right up here.
Oh, yeah.
Let's see, JV, front and center, I'll be back.
And I'll stand behind you.
Oh, can I see? CJ, hands up. Ready? Yeah. Okay, got it.
Good seeing you again, CJ.
Thank you so much.
The pleasure was ours. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Thanks for the photo. Thank you.
We just have to launch student so we can launch.
Two, yeah.
All right, thank you guys. Have a good night. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and they both,
Home this weekend and she's like.
yeah, immediately after that, they said, yeah, I want to read the books.
Yeah. It's lengthy books.
Yeah.
Well, it's always roll call. The only time it's a roll call.
Oh,
when we do a
resolution.
resolution. it's a roll call vote.
All right. May we have a roll call vote or roll call, please?
Trustee Gray,
Here.
trustee Jackson Miller,
Here.
trustee Donnelly,
Present.
trustee Dickinson,
Here.
trustee Edmondson,
Present. All right, may I have an adoption of the agenda?
Can I just throw a couple of things out there?
Oh, yes, all right.
So, just to bring a couple items before you formally adopt the agenda. In the consent agenda, there's 2 job descriptions, and on the 7th bullet of each one of those job descriptions, which is the same, we would just like to make a language change, and it's indicated on this page that you have at your desk. And we just wanted to make that language a little bit more in line with the way the language we use about supporting students. And so that would be on
Okay.
items 2E and 2F of the consent agenda. And then also, we want to table the recognition item to a future meeting where we can make the proper big deal out of it that it deserves.
All right, thank you. So with those changes, may I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make it.
A second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, may I have a consent agenda? Can I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda with those changes?
I'll make the motion.
All right, may I have a second?
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. All right, man, we're moving through it. Public communications. Do we have any public?
Nothing on email.
Nothing on email? Anything in the room? No? All right. Okay, moving on to standing reports. Should we start? Would you like
Sure,
To start?
yes. So lots going on in the district, of course, as always. And so let's see the items that I'd like to share. So much good stuff going on. So earlier this week, I got to visit the Jean Kavame Center for Adaptive Writing, which was really cool. I'll give you a brief outline of it. I can give you more on the Friday update, including pictures. But it's a horse facility. And so we have a student whose IEP requires it from New Brighton, and they go up there. So I always wanted to get up there and see it. It's an amazing place. It's one of the nicest horse facilities I've ever been to. And a retired administrator from the county, Michelle McKinney, some of you know her. Some of you may have had her for a teacher. But her passion in retirement is kids and horses. And so it's a perfect mix for her. So rather than only having it for students, most of you have probably seen equine therapy for students with special needs, amazing results they get from that. But she wanted another pathway to help students in her role leading the student attendance review board in the county. And so she is bringing students, and the first 4 students who get to participate in this are all from New Brighton, which is pretty amazing. And so they go up there and do some of the same concepts that students with special needs do. Typically, these are students who have challenges and in their background, and that's why there's attendance issues. And this gives them something to feel confident about and feel good about and look forward to. Families are involved. It's really amazing. So I got to go up there and see our students interacting with horses. doing the chores, including scooping the manure, brushing the horses, and then they work up to being able to ride. So it's a really powerful program. And she's offered more slots for our elementary students. And so it'll be something else that we can offer families that are having challenges in one way or another with attendance, and students who just need another positive activity. So that was a really nice opportunity. Last week I got to attend the Main Street Invention Convention, which is always wonderful. It's just so inspiring to see the thought that goes into those projects. I always enjoy being a part of that and getting to see former Main Street principal Brenda Payne being such an integral part of that. There's polling going on right now for the possible bond measure, and I'll be able to report some data to you soon on how that's going. Let's see. Also last week, we got to work on what we call the district office charter, which is what a lot of our classrooms use to say, hey, how do we want to feel when we come to work? We kind of got our whole district office team together. We did that, and that was, I think, a nice way to make sure that everybody's feeling good and feeling involved in everything happening on our team. I wanted to give a big shout out to our maintenance team for their work on 1 million projects, but especially most specifically the new Brighton garden beds. So if you go over there between the wings, you'll see plants growing in those beds now. So we have a great garden going at New Brighton. And earlier today, we met with the New Brighton PE team and a host of experts on the next phase of the New Brighton field. And so we have some additional drawings. There's a board up in the office now showing the field with the Viking logo in there, which is pretty cool, makes it all seem a little more real, but continued input from the field to make sure it turns out exactly how they want it within the scope of the budget that we have. And I want to thank Jessica for getting us over to do the AXA presentation in San Luis Obispo over the weekend. That was a great conference, and it was a joy to do a presentation with you. And that's all for me.
Great, thank you.
Cool. Well, I'll just tag on to the last comment made. Scott and I had a wonderful time at the Mid-State Conference in San Luis Obispo, and the constituency group is leadership in the state of California from basically the most southern part of Ventura County all the way up through Santa Cruz County. And we were able to present together, which was fantastic, but we were able to see other presenters, another of which was Carissa Lemos, who's our Director of Student Services. And also just kind of took some time to listen to some of our legislators who were invited to really listen to them about their perspectives on education, on the budget, on the implications of, education and other social services within the budget. And so that was really great to be able to have some listening ears on that, but also some voice in that. So a great time. We came home Sunday tired and, but also like really excited to have been there. Since the last time we met, I was able to participate in the U.S. Department of Education Welcoming Newcomer project. And this project was hosted by Safe and Supportive Schools, the International Center of Safe and Supportive Schools. And it's really talking about ways to bring newcomers into schools in the United States and in a positive and supportive way. And it really what it's based in is inclusion and all the practices around positive inclusion. We've also been participating with R5, and what R5 is nothing like its name, but really it's an organization designed by the state of California and the CDE specifically to take a look at categorical funding like those associated with our expanded learning opportunity grant funds. That's the ELOP. And so this year, coming into this year, is the heavier auditing year for the programming. And I think that's to determine whether, schools and school districts are using the funds in ways that support students the way they were intended. And so we were able to spend a lot of time on Monday learning about the implications of the legislation that surrounds that. And that will lead into 2 school visits for us on Tuesday of this coming week. We'll be visiting New Brighton and we'll be visiting Soquel Elementary, and those were randomly selected by R5. And we'll be able to do a pre-auditing process, which will say like, are you on target? And what are your students getting to do during the time that they're investing and your staff's investing? So that's been very exciting. I was able to go to Pages and PJs and read a story that I really love over at Santa Cruz Gardens. I actually had Miss Monica's daughter in one of my sessions. It's great.
What did you read?
I read a book called Where Do I Come From?
Oh.
Aw,
Right.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I had a really big group in the middle, smaller on the other two sides, but the group in the middle was super fun. Well, they were great. But they had lots of great questions. I was also able to go to the Invention Convention. I love it as a principal. I was the host every year, and I love to see the creativity and the innovation that these students are sharing. It was just fantastic. And then just lastly, you know, we're really kind of getting ready for the next phase of the LCAP, which includes our data collection, more of our data collection, and I'll be visiting some campuses soon. We're really excited about that. That's all I have to share.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and I come off of them when they're so eventful. So the team and I have been working tirelessly to finish second interim and then jump right into the retro that's going to be on the end of this month's payroll. So we're pretty much wrapping up with the retro today. Tomorrow morning it should be closed, so it's very tedious because you kind of have to go through almost every single person and kind of touch them and then research if anything's slightly off, if there's any type of change, so.
We've said it on the record now, so it better be coming at the end of the letter.
Oops.
George, can we? And that's all I've been doing. It's important.
Yes,
Yeah.
very important. Thank you for that. All right.
Can I go back and add something?
Oh,
I
of
think the
course.
board would want to know.
Yes.
We were invited to the Arts Council for the city to discuss the next phase of our beautification partner project, which is the tile project from Watford. And they've given us kind of the next step of green light. And so with that, we've been working with Roy Segura and Ann Wilson, who have really been great partners in this project. Put out an invitation for staff to teach the ELOP classes where students will be making the tiles. And I would say between the time I posted the invitation, like which was about 1 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock, we already had 9 staff say, I really want to be involved in the project. So just wanted the board to know it's going really well.
That's so exciting. And is that presenting at the city council? Is that what the?
It was presented at the city council already. They liked the idea and it went to the Arts Commission.
The Arts
because
Commission,
they,
yeah.
you know, they really want a sense of what it's gonna look
Yes,
like.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very exciting, very exciting. Okay. All right, SEA,
Okay, who would like to keep it first?
CSEA?
Yes, yes.
All right.
I've never done this before, so bear with me. Dear board members and superintendents, my name is Charlotte Link, and I'm very happy to be here this evening to represent the California School Employee Association. I currently work at Soka Elementary as a recess coach. I've been with the district for 7 years. I enjoy working with the Soka Elementary School District because of the great colleagues I have and the children, of course. And I want to make a little note, and it is from Enrique and from Lynn Macao. Congratulations to Carissa Limos and Christina Adrius. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Charlotte.
Yeah.
And that's such an important job, recess coach. Thank you for that work. We really appreciate the adults out there. Yeah, yeah. All right, SEA.
SEA.
Yeah.
All right, it's obviously, excuse my parents, I left Zumba class in the middle, so you know, district's important to me. So New Brighton Middle School's 8th grade team is honored to welcome back Holocaust survivor Gita, who shares her story with the students. It's really a gift to have her share her life story and to also, you know, be able to have somebody who's still with us to share that real history. SoCal Elementary's Jogathon was a great event. At the leadership meeting that day, everyone agreed that it felt like a pre-COVID traditional event. There were so many families there to make that all happen. The Opal Cliff students are excited to have their first art display at the district office next month. And one Opal Cliffs eighth grader recently qualified for the national ski competition in Colorado. So this student is a nationally ranked skier, and Opal Cliff students are hoping to cheer this person on at the Olympics someday. Main Street was very excited to welcome past principal and current executive director of the California Invention Convention, Brenda Payne, to the Invention Convention for the fifth graders. They're thrilled that 7 students are able to attend the state level convention this year. Many thanks to Superintendent Turnbull, Dr. Glantz Kiernan, and Board President Kyle Yetmanson for attending. The fifth grade also had an amazing time at mock trial and enjoyed having 2 local lawyers visit their classrooms. The third graders wowed everyone with their capoeira performance, showing off their learning at the instruction of Papiba Godina. And finally, Main Street is proud of 2 of their students qualifying for the history bee.
Wow.
Wow.
Finally, Santa Cruz Gardens has enjoyed some great assemblies, including one about change and stability. We had an exciting Pages and PJs event that was very well attended. We also had an exciting assembly that showed off some crazy BMX stunts. The other day.
Principal made it out alive. They did the jump over.
I'm volunteering. They jumped over boys and all boys.
Yes.
And they were like 2 volunteers. And our students have also really been enjoying getting the spirit of spirit days, such as Hat Day. And we are also just starting some dance units, and we are also getting capoeira from Pabina, who is often at the Zumba classes.
Yeah.
It's almost.
Yeah.
Great, thank you for that update. So many exciting things.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to items from trustees. Would someone like to start?
I'll start because it's might be a little longer than usual, and Jen, I will send you my notes. But I had the pleasure of attending CSBA's Legislative Action Week last week. So I thought I would just share a little bit about what we talked to our representatives about, and then I will I'll send Scott some of the talking points if you want to include them in a Friday update. I meant to do it last week. So I attended a meeting with Assembly Person Addis, Dawn Addis's office, and then a meeting with Senator John Laird. And so this is where our school board advocacy group, which is California School Boards Association, sets up Advocacy Week to talk to legislators about school board priorities. So our budget priorities that were agreed upon by CSBA and discussed in the meetings are protecting the integrity of the property of the Prop 98 guarantee. Basically, the governor is doing a funding maneuver, which is probably a good thing for right now, like borrowing some money to make sure the Prop 98 guarantee is met. But CSBA has some concerns about if that ever became a trend, that in future years could potentially lower what all school districts get for Prop 98. So it's a funding issue. It's like, let's please just make sure our funding is stable. So that's the ask. Like, thank you for everything that we're trying to do to keep statewide funding stable this year. But there's a little concern, like this might not be the way to do it. I'm sure you would have much more to expand upon in that. And then letting us stay budget-wise, again, letting us stay focused on maintaining existing programs and not a lot of new mandates and categorical spending requirements, and trying to maintain local control. And then there were 3 sponsored bills, so legislations that's sponsored by California School Boards Association. So that was discussed in the meetings as well. One is something I brought up in one of our recent meetings, which is the idea of trying to consolidate and reduce the number of reports that school district administrators and staff have to prepare for the state. And so it's a bill asking the Department of Education to create a report on how many reports there are. That's literally what it is. We need a report because somebody needs to actually quantify and say, this is exactly what's being asked of all of our districts. And there are so many, we're a relatively small district. I mean, at least half the districts in California are our size or smaller. And then there's single school districts and even smaller districts. And you have a lot of people being required to do a lot of the same reports. And now we're seeing like Jessica shows us now, there are
Yeah.
new mid-year reports that weren't required before. And while they all may serve a purpose, we don't know that there's anyone really tracking how many reports there are. So that's one bill. Another one is establishing an Office of Small School District Facilities and Construction. So that's something that our district would potentially benefit from if a bond were passed, and some of the things that each district is potentially having to go out and do on their own. If this office actually became established, that would potentially save money and efforts. And then the last one is the request to place a school facilities bond on the November 2024 ballots. So statewide school facilities bond, which the state does periodically, but it's been a while and there isn't money in it for a statewide bond. So those were the talking points. The meetings went really well. Our legislators are very engaged, especially, I mean, I don't think anyone could be more knowledgeable about the state education budget than Senator Laird, who had some great questions and answers. So thank you for allowing me to make an extra long report. The only other thing I wanted to share was the organization Your Future is Our Business is wonderful local nonprofit. The executive director is Yvette Lopez Brooks, who is a district parent and also on Capitola City Council. And I had the pleasure of being a career speaker for that organization at Pajaro Valley High last Friday. And I would encourage, they're always looking for volunteers, and it was great. I mean, I talked about my day job, but I also talked about the value in serving on a school board and public service. And so I would just encourage anyone interested here at the table out there, the public, they have students who are really hungry to learn about real world work opportunities and just learning from people's direct experiences and getting that inspiration. So plug for Your Future is Our Business. I know our district has partnered with them and they've gone to SoCal Elementary and I'm sure New Brighton, but it was really great to be a speaker. So I just highly recommend it.
That's great. Yeah, thank you so much
Yeah.
for that. And thanks for participating in Legislative Action Week.
Yeah.
I think that's a wonderful thing a school board member can do.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And I will say that it's, yeah, bye.
Oh, yeah.
It was so much easier for me because it is virtual and I got
Yeah.
to go once or twice back when it was in person and that was great too. And it's virtual now again, because the Capitol, half the legislators are in like kind of temporary office space right now, so they don't even have the right physical space for it. But boy, I mean, I was able to do it in the middle of my work day, which, you can't do that with a day trip to Sacramento. So, 10 out of 10, good experience. I recommend.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, who's next?
Well, I'll just piggyback with Scott about thanks to the maintenance for the boxes, and again, CSEA was out the door. No, they do a great job, CSEA. And they didn't call us recess coaches, but when I was like 22, they needed one at Del Mar, and man, I got worked. I really worked, so that's a tough job.
That's why we need them.
Well, me, I was a sucker, man. I was fresh blood. But that's it.
Okay, thanks for that.
You don't have to put that in the mix.
So did you want
No, I don't have anything
to? Okay, all right. Did you want to?
Well, I just want to say, I'm so sorry that I missed the invention convention. I remember my kids did that and it was just the coolest thing in the world. And I just wish I'd gone. I had work and stuff that took me away from it, but I just sort of have the fondest memories in the world. And our kids are so amazingly bright that it's so much fun. And I think the year we did it, my son made a table on like a nightstand table with a built-in light and everything like that, so he could read at night and something like that. And the kid that actually won it, gosh, I wish I could remember his name. This was like 4 years ago, but he built something that actually went on to be like, he could make money off of it to like keep on going, something to do with water and algae and things like that. So it was really cool stuff. Yeah.
Very cool. All right, so piggybacking on that, I attended the Invention Convention. And it was really great. I just want to give you a little snapshot. So they have their projects around the library. And then they come and they've got their poster and they're presenting their idea. And then there's this excellent moment after they're done with their presentation and the whole class is watching and they say, are there any questions? And then like 20 hands go up and they say, well, have you thought about this? Or do you know anything else on the market? Or, and it's just this, it's like this amazing little brainstorm. And they say, well, yes, I've thought about that, or this is my first model, you know, it was like, it was very wonderful. And the other thing that I loved was the problems that they were solving. I think my favorite problem that was solved was when you go to the beach and you collect all the shells and then it's sandy and dirty and your car gets dirty. So it was a shell washer for when you go to the beach. I thought, yes, yes, yes. And then the other thing I got to do was I attended the author visit at Main Street. I love the Ann Wilson. I think she's the leader of that, but she collaborates with Bookshop Santa Cruz, who often gets great speakers and then brings them to Main Street. So we got the graphic novelist Maria Shriven, who does the Nat series, Nat Enough, and they're just, it was so wonderful. And she did drawings and she had a whole slideshow, and it was just, it brings it to life that someone can actually be an author or an artist, or, so that was really fun. All right. Thanks for updates. Moving on to presentation, information discussion. Wow, the moment, George.
Good, George.
We come back. Yeah. Hi, George.
I'm George Lopez, Technology Coordinator.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Weird being on this side of the camera. So I just want to give you a general update of what we've been up to in technology over the last year. First, I want to talk about our team. Me, Technology Coordinator, Marla, Technology Support Specialist, and our newest addition, Renee, Technology Support Specialist, Renee Quesada. Marla's been here since 2014, so long time. She's been doing great, and Renee's new, and he's doing great. Almost got a full year in and doing really good. I asked him to give a picture, and he gave this one of his tuxedo. He swears it's the only good picture. I'm like, all right. So I had to one up him a little bit, so here we go.
Drop the thug life on.
So we've been staying very busy. I ran the numbers on our help desk, and this is March 15th last year, March 15th this year.
Wow.
1,425 tickets.
Wow.
So that's everything, laptops, Chromebooks, mostly Chromebooks. Desktops, you know, everything we can do. We're reachable through the help desk, and that's what we've been doing. And that doesn't include just emails directly to us, us walking by and helping.
Yeah.
So we've been keeping very busy. Let's see. Big projects over the last year. We put in new security cameras for security cameras at Main Street Elementary. I've been going over very well. I think you saw my picture.
Yeah.
Well, here's the camera from right in front of the Main Street Administration office, and here's the view from the camera. There's me.
Wow.
But it's a good
Gotcha.
system, you know, you can see the time, the date, you know, where it was taken and everything. It's a great system. Let me go back a little bit. So we've expanded at New Brighton as well. So New Brighton, if you look at the campus, it's like a lot of little nooks and crannies, a lot of spots that need to be adjusted and everything. So when we did the 8 new cameras at Main Street, we also did 8 more at New Brighton just to like cover all the spots. So
Wow.
they should be good now, but we'll see. And also over the last year, we've been kind of emphasizing like safety stuff. So like the intercom speakers, we have a lot of older systems that we've been trying to work on and expand. So we've put in like 5 new speakers at New Brighton Middle School, cover like the quad area, like different spots of it. So it comes at in multiple angles because it gets really loud when there's like 600 kids out there.
Yeah.
We can't hear anything. So there were a few dead spots that we've been covering up. A new one that like reaches out towards the field, and then in the between the 20 and 30 and 40 wings there. So we've been expanding a lot of that. We've also been we added a couple more at Santa Cruz Gardens for a couple spots, like the kindergarten play area. Didn't have any speakers, so we had to cover that. And then out towards the blacktop over there at the back of Santa Cruz Gardens, we also covered that. And then Main Street, we just installed a new one on the edge of the new building facing the blacktop, because when they installed the new buildings, they put a bunch of speakers inside the classrooms, but none to face towards the new big empty spots. So that's been a big emphasis for us. And another project I forgot to even mention there, but we installed an emergency radio system at every school, which I think we brought up here and approved it and all. So that's been great. It's just a little radio inside of the front offices that we're going to connect to the principal's walkie-talkies.
Mhm.
And even if the power goes down, internet goes out, the worst happens, we still have communication between the sites.
Mhm.
So yeah, looking forward to projects coming up. One of these is on the docket for later today, the AT&T
Mhm.
fiber, which
Mhm.
I think we're just fixing like the language for the last contract, right? So just to clarify, we currently have Spectrum. So Charter Spectrum, they were called Charter when they first bid
Mhm.
on us.
And they're listed them as charter still.
Yeah, Charter. So it's Spectrum,
Yeah.
called Spectrum now because they're the Capitola internet provider. And they use Comcast circuits because we have schools that are only in Comcast areas. That's where it got kind of confused.
Hmm.
So we have a fiber network that's all together using both of their circuits. So we'll be switching to AT&T, all sites are on AT&T. There'll be, I think Santa Cruz Gardens has a special construction fee to bring the fiber up there.
It's
But-
the one-time fee.
Yeah, it's a one-time fee for that one. But other than that, everywhere else should be minimal construction.
Mhm.
But we're gonna have to do some configuration changes to make it all work. It's a different way of, different way the network switches talk to each other. So gonna try and get in by July 1st and just make sure everything is ready to go for the new school year. And then next year, we're looking into Verkada cameras for Santa Cruz Gardens. So it should be, it's our smallest site, but there's a lot of interesting hallways along, but hopefully it's not more than Main Street. I think we should be okay. Just gotta cover the big areas.
Yeah.
So pretty quick presentation, but I just want to update you on the bigger projects we're doing and see if you had any questions for me.
Thank you. I mean, this, yeah.
Sorry. I mean, Domino's here in about half hour.
You have to put in a ticket for that.
2,500.
Yeah. Email set help desk will help you.
I was just looking at the map of New Brighton here, and there's, I think it was by the science department one time, there's that little
Mhm.
alcove that
Oh,
kids would
yeah.
climb up the tree to get on the
Oh, yeah.
roof and do all sorts of stuff in there. Do
Yeah.
you have cameras in there?
So we have a camera that, should I give away all our secrets? We have a camera
Oh,
that
yeah.
goes down the hallway and it gets a
Mhm.
pretty good angle of everything that comes and goes. We have cameras that get the roofs on the other side, so you can kind of see when kids get up to mischief on the roofs.
Oh, okay.
Which tends to happen at that site, but no matter where you
Mm-hmm.
look, there's gonna be a dead spot, but we try to cover them as best we can. And I think everywhere's pretty well covered right now.
And the cameras run all day as well.
Yeah, they run all day. We got it records for 30 days.
Okay.
So if anything happens within a month, we can take a look at it and we can archive it so that it doesn't get erased and just, it's a good system. It's lasted a long time.
Now, I know we talked about this, but is there a monitor in the office that has a view of all the cameras? Like if somebody walks by, I mean, you're not gonna stare at it
Sure.
24/7, but is there a monitor as they walk by and look over and go, whoa, wait, there's,
I mean, no, but that's possible. I mean, it's really just, it all goes to Verkada's command website. So it's really anyone that has access, which is very limited people, me, Scott, Steve, and the principals, and Jessica, I think. No? Maybe we set it up for you, but you never use it.
well, I'm just thinking about more of immediate response.
Sure, yeah, it's possible if you want to, we set up a monitor, if we want to get that going, that's possible. Maybe have it.
It'd be nice to
constantly
just have
going.
something going and then, like I said, oh my God, there's Pennywise, they're coming.
We're gonna pay somebody to sit there and watch
No,
TV.
no. You just have a monitor going.
Yeah.
And as staff in their office are
Yeah.
walking along, they could glance at it. I mean, and if they see something odd, then then report it. But no, we're not gonna have somebody sit there and just stare at it, you know?
It's not a bad idea, as long as students can't see where the cameras are.
Well, no,
facing.
yeah.
I
But
like,
yeah,
I
it's
like your
awesome for
idea
sure.
that we are giving away secrets as if all of our students are watching this, which would be great.
Yeah, now I know where not to skateboard at Main Street.
If you're on New Brighton campus, we see you.
Not to mention the drone coverage, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's an intermittent interval, so you
Yeah.
never know when it comes back.
So, George, what's the security like on the platform? I mean, can
For
anybody?
Brigada,
Yeah,
so we only assign it to certain users, and it's a multi-factor authentication. It can only be logged in, a certain amount of time. It times out. Yeah, it's only accessible via those certain accounts.
okay, so people can't just access it with
Definitely not.
Wi-Fi.
We keep it locked down, and I have an admin log of whoever logs in and logs out, so.
Great. And the other thing I'd like to mention is I deal with engineers and IT people all the time. You're fantastic up there. That was a great presentation. That was short and sweet.
I try, like, I could get down into the technical details, but like, I try to keep it relatable.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
I have a relatable question, but like, could you just, the difference between going from the one, I think it's 1 gig to 10 gig,
Yeah.
like what will that look like for a teacher or for a student?
So basically, 1 gig is pretty good.
Uh-huh.
But the problem is, think of all the pipes connecting to
Mhm.
one pipe,
Mhm.
which goes to the County Office of Education as our internet service provider.
Mhm.
So really, any router you have that provides wireless access, it's really going to be like 1 gig maximum speed. Like that's really good. Like you're not going to get worse than that. Where it gets bogged down is everywhere's connecting at the same time, and it goes to one gig
Mhm.
pipe. So it's a bottleneck.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if we expand to 10 gigs, it's a much bigger pipe for everyone to fit through, and like should have plenty of bandwidth.
So like if everyone's doing testing all at the same time, that's
Much better
gonna have a
connectivity.
better, okay. Got it.
Just eliminates the bottleneck. Yeah.
That affects the Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Students
anyone that
access
connects to the
this stuff.
network, you're pulling data,
Mhm.
it goes through that bandwidth pipe. Yeah. Right now, the meeting is going through the pipe.
Cool.
So going back to Ted's question about someone watching so right now, the video is mostly used if there is an incident, then we have a recording of it to go back and look at.
Well, some principals, it's their prerogative, if like, I think I've gone by and Christine's had it up on the monitor, just like monitoring it. But most of the times the principals are out there,
Yeah.
helping.
Mhm.
They're on,
Right.
they're out there. So, it's up to them, but they can, pull it up whenever they want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it a multi-feed screen or just like one camera?
No, it's a multi-feed screen.
So
Like,
they can see all the cameras at their site?
yeah, and you can put custom, like if you just want to see these 3 cameras, you can put
Right.
it on a specific view and just have those constantly going.
Oh, cool.
And it detects motion, so if someone, which it happens frequently, like not too frequently, but they'll be like, hey, this happened at this time, between this time and this time in the middle of the night. So I can go through and just see when motion was going by a camera, so I can like narrow it down. Or I'll say like, hey, can you watch 24 hours worth of video?
Yeah. No, I mean, technology has just really boomed. I mean, I remember
Oh,
first
yeah.
coming on the board and just trying to get it going, and we're just like, there's no way it's ever gonna take off. And now it's just like, it's up here, you're up here, and then it's just happening. Is the
It's
server
evolved.
still in this back room right here, or do you have
The
the
server?
server? Yeah.
I used to be there.
Right,
We
right.
moved it all out of there to the new Brighton server room. It's off of the library.
Okay.
Yeah, so it has its own climate controlled room. over
Yeah, I
there.
remember when they put computers in the library at Main Street. I'm not sure if you're there. When they first came out, man, the room was hot.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's evolved so much. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
Oh,
worked
yeah.
here for 12 years, and imagine technology 12 years ago. I mean, we had maybe 2, you remember those like iMac cubes?
Yeah, yeah.
That was like the recent computers that we had
Yeah.
for the kids in the classroom, and we were lucky if we had 2 per classroom. And
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
imagine now, everyone's got their own device.
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a lot. Just in the time I've been.
Is that still something we do? Do all the students have Chromebooks?
Yeah, like so in the elementary schools, we have them built into the classroom. They have their own charging docks and everything. And they just pull out, and I think they assign them one to each kid, and then
Like
we have a few
Chrome
extra.
cards or something?
Yeah, they're like the
Yeah.
newer, yeah, we have like built-in
Built-in, yeah.
dots, yeah, but for the like lower grades, we have like iPad carts, and we have those like carry buckets that you pull out and like put it on a table for a group. And
Yeah.
there's your group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then the middle school students, they all have a Chromebook.
Take it back and forth,
Wow,
constantly break them.
yeah, that's a lot of devices that you manage.
Oh, yeah. It's
Uh-huh.
it's exponential since I started.
And then part of the tickets are kids dropping from books.
Oh, yeah.
Never getting it back.
You know, it happens.
So when the ticket is made, is there a person that does a certain job? Are you just sign the next person in line?
I mean, me, Marla, and Renee just monitor the help desk, and usually we assign it by school. Like Marla will be the primary person for New Brighton Middle School, and then because they need the most attention, they got the most kids, and then Renee will cover the elementary schools, and then I'll back them up because I usually have other projects I'm doing.
Right, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you know, it's kind of a first come, first served thing, but yeah, assigned by sites.
Right, anything else? Thank you so much, George. It's
Yeah,
great to hear about
Yeah.
technology and really impressive, all those help tickets.
Yeah.
Hi.
Thank you for the team.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the numbers like pre-COVID, because that's before we gave every kid a device.
Yeah.
And we were averaging like 1,300 tickets a year. So even those few
Wow.
years since, it's just gone up and up and up.
Yeah.
That's really
You don't have to go to board members' houses and set them up on computers. Like, yeah.
Whatever you guys need.
I haven't had to go crawl into people's house, the board members' house. to set them up.
I will say that Scott and I had a presentation that was out of the area and they didn't have enough technology at the conference. So George at the last minute had to get projectors for us, speakers for us, back them up for us, so
Wow.
we could take them on the road. So he goes above and beyond.
Yeah, thank you. Wow, that's great.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no
thank you,
problem.
George.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
All right.
Moving on to 6B, discussion regarding board policy 500 on accountability.
So you have a paper copy of this as well, because the digital version kind of came scrunched a little bit. And so this one came out a little cleaner, and the little SUESD at the very beginning didn't end up in the digital copy. And so know that that's something that the board values. So does everybody have a physical copy of it?
Yep.
So I'll go through the changes there. So this is policy 0500. And this is on accountability, and accountability can be a very broad term. Accountability in this sense is accountability that we think of like with the dashboard and looking at student academic scores and chronic absenteeism and all of those little dials and on the dashboard that we've come to think of, right? So it's accountability in that sense, school accountability. And this policy has been updated for a couple of items. So I'll go through the changes on this hard copy. First, at the very beginning, I know that the board likes whenever we update these to get the personalized SUESD governing board, not just the governing board. So you'll notice that at the very beginning. On the third paragraph, you'll notice that it's completely stricken out. That's for the reason that there used to be for alternative schools, which we don't have one. Opal Cliffs is the closest that we have. But they have all of the normal accountability systems in place for the dashboard there. This would be for an alternative school, like a non-public school, community day school, something like that. There used to be different accountability measures, but now the state is migrating all of that over so that they can, with certain tools in place to make those schools be aligned with the quote unquote regular dashboard. So neither for us nor for any alternative school in the state is that part of the board policy necessary anymore. So that's why it's stricken. It's just not required anymore. All of those schools are part of the regular dashboard, so to speak. In the fourth paragraph, there's a couple of items there. We are now required to include as a group, not just English learners, but that group that's long-term English learners. And that's students who have been from the time that I've been identified as an English learner or have maintained that for 7 years or more. And so those are those students who, of course, reach middle school and high school, still haven't gone through something like our amazing Best Night of the Year reclassification ceremony, haven't reached that reclassification status yet, and are still long-term English learners. Of course, there is appropriate concern and gravitas around that student group and wanting to make sure that they get all the support they need. And so therefore, rather than just lumping them in with the English learner group, they're called out as a specific term now. And we wanted to make sure that that got in there. Also, you'll notice in there that the way that the students experiencing homelessness has been rephrased and kind of going to our the job description earlier in language that is more in line with what we use in public education these days. So instead of homeless students, students experiencing homelessness. You'll see that in a couple of places, that and the long-term English learner group being added as its own subgroup to monitor. Finally, at the very bottom, you'll see a complete new paragraph added. And that is basically saying that whatever the technical assistance offered based on the dashboard monitoring system, whatever is in place to say a particular student group, it might be English learners, it might be students with disabilities, it might be students of particular ethnicity, whatever group is not meeting certain standards, that group will be monitored, and that if any assistance is offered by the county superintendent of schools, that will be accepted. In other words, we can't go, oh, we're not doing very well with our students with disabilities. You want to offer us assistance? No, thanks. We can't do that. We never would. But this makes sure that no school in the state could decline that assistance. Obviously, if you're not supporting a particular group of students correctly or effectively, you need support. And if support's offered, you should take it. So it's making sure that we know that there will be monitoring systems in place for all of those for student groups, including the new one called long-term English learners, and that if support is offered through the County Office of Education, we will take it. So those are the changes indicated in this policy on accountability.
Great, thank you for explaining that. Questions or comments? This is just an English teacher moment.
Okay.
So 1, 2, 3, the fourth paragraph, I think that the second sentence, it's actually not a sentence. Maybe it just needs a dash. I don't see a verb in there. I think it's just a kind of a continuation of that first. So it's just a little small detail.
I mean, starting at.
Starting at numerically significant subgroups.
I will have to check that against the CSB.
Wow.
Yes.
On the sub. Yeah, there's no verb.
Good.
Well, what should we throw in there?
I will
Like
probably.
more like a definition though, maybe? If like,
Wouldn't it need a dash?
And that's
though?
a
It would need a dash.
it's a run-on sentence too.
Excellent.
So 2 things, it is long, but that is how the policy was written from CSBA, and I think that it's include, so numerically significant subgroups include these groups. So that's what it's intended to do, is it's defining numerically significant subgroups.
I will accept whatever CSBA said, but I'm just saying, I think what it needs is a dash, because do you see before numerically significant student subgroups before in that first sentence? And it's explaining what those subgroups are. But whatever CSBA says, that works for me.
Oh, I mean,
I think a dash,
they can be wrong too.
a dash would do it.
Numerically
Where would the
significant
dash be?
subgroups include ethnic subgroups. So I hear what you're saying. It makes sense to me.
Okay.
I don't want to give the impression I'm just taking what CSBA has got. I'm not saying
Okay,
that.
yeah.
But I'm saying that's not an internal error or something.
Okay.
Wow.
And then the long-term English learners, that's kind of coming from on high, right? Like that CSBA recommends that, and that's the state.
Yeah, that's from the CDE.
Yeah, and so it doesn't really have anything to do with progress. It's 7 years and they are
They haven't
still,
met the reclassification.
even if
criteria.
they're moving up, they're not reclassified. Okay, just wanted to understand that.
And not really a question because I like this better, but in the past we've used unhoused, and I've seen unhoused a lot more frequently in the past year or so.
Right.
I personally, I feel experiencing homelessness is a better term than unhoused, but that seems like a switch that has been made. at some point.
Always trying to find a way to be sensitive with our language.
Certainly.
I appreciate that it's like person-centered, right? We're talking about what a person, similarly, when we're talking about other health conditions or things folks might be experiencing, and we're putting the person at the front.
For sure.
Rather than the condition. I don't have any questions.
All right. Anything else? No?
Just
All
don't
right.
want to know what that verb is, but I don't know about that. Let me know later.
Include.
Yeah, where would that be? No, okay.
Include.
This is in,
It's just a first reading.
oh, there's a first reading. Then we did good. All right.
That's back in consent.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that.
Anyone here in public that are we checking just to make sure we don't have any
Oh,
emails
good
on any of our discussion presentation items?
I've been checking
Thank
and
you.
nothing on email.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to action items. So 7A, consider approval of the bid contract for the 60-month term from AT&T E-rate.
We're back. So as the Friday update, we're back with the E-rate contract. You'll notice that on our board memo sheet, it says 60 months now. They wanted to make sure that we have that listed as that it's a 5-year term. And as far as part of the contract that had the issue, they didn't give us the master contract. So the original contract that was attached, that was the base contract that they gave us, but they also needed to attach the master contract. There's nothing that changed on the original contract. So we added the master. And then we also updated the approximate annual amount, because when AT&T had provided us the estimate, they had given us a little bit of a lower annual rate due to applying a couple extra discounts that we wouldn't qualify for. However, with that, we are still at half of what we're paying right now for 1 gigabyte. And I went in and I added up how much we're paying this year, like from July through June, and we're about 19,500. So this going to 10, we're still saving about $10,000. Yeah.
Wow.
Can you take a look at my cable bill? Thank you.
I now have to.
Going there too.
Yeah.
All right. Any questions or comments?
Just popped in, but AT&T pulling the landlines, is that gonna have any effect with internet service? Are they can still, because it's all hardwired, right?
I believe so. And George can he'll know all this back end stuff. George.
Yeah.
He left.
I'm
Yeah.
here, I'm here. You want me to come over?
Yes, please.
I'll be right there.
Yeah.
Wait, put in a ticket.
I'm the one that catches the.
Robert and I'll keep it. I'm the email.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So Ted had a great question.
But the AT&T pulling the landlines, is that gonna have effect on internet service? Are they still wired or?
So it's a separate, it's fiber. So
Mhm.
like the landlines are usually on copper lines.
Okay.
So it's its own fiber network that they've been pulling everywhere throughout the county. Like,
Okay.
yeah. And in front of my house, like they had a big truck up there and they're pulling it into, and you live over by me.
Yeah,
You might
yeah.
have seen them.
Yeah, so I don't have a landline anymore.
Oh, yeah, me either.
So if I climb up on the wires and cut the landline, because it's too ugly
Yeah.
in the house, but
Oh, yeah.
then I'd lose the hard wire if I was gonna do internet.
Yeah.
Hard
Oh, that'll cut it, yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, maybe I should go.
I mean, you could
Uh-huh.
have our fiber line that is here now, that's Spectrum, it's the same thing.
Yeah, right.
So glad our students are watching.
Oh.
But don't do it, anyone.
So yeah, I was curious about that, but.
Yeah, it's kind of like it runs through AT&T fiber network, but it's gonna connect each school to that network, so.
Okay. Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
I have a question. So when we had looked at this last time, we had the scorecard with the other bid,
Mhm.
with the fiscal impact being adjusted because of the credits or deductions that we don't, does that scorecard comparison still apply that AT&T was,
Yes,
better?
they still come in a lot lower.
Okay.
Yeah, we couldn't believe the difference. So they're still coming in lower. Because when we compared, we were comparing what it's showing as the monthly cost of the 644 before the discounts. So that's how we can
Okay.
compare.
Anything else? Questions or comments? All right, so this is
Great.
an action item.
Mhm.
Do I have a motion to approve the contract?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Right.
Thank you, George.
Thank you. All right, 7B, consider adopting the student transportation plan.
Okay, so this is something new that started last year. And it's kind of tricky because we do transportation, but however, we only transfer our sped students. However, we're still required to fill out this plan every year. So it's basically status quo from last year. Nothing has really changed. It'd be the same type of process that we'd go through. If you look at the bottom where the figures are on page 107, you'll see that the revenue calculation, and then kind of 4 slots down, you'll see the estimated 60% reimbursement is 201. So after you take the 385, which was the total transportation expenses, less the capital outlay of 48,000, and then you multiply it by 60%, you get 201. And what we received, because this is our 22-23 numbers, what we received from our LCFF calculator for transportation was 168,000. So according to this, we may be getting another 33,000. And this information, the way that the state finds this out, we adopt this plan. And then the state then pulls the information at the end of the year from SACS. So they know the function, resources, and everything to pull from. And then they do their calculation on their end, similar to this. It should be pretty much the same thing. And then they'll then adjust our add-on if needed. So I'm hoping that this 33,000 comes to light. So, but we do have to adopt a plan regardless. Last year, when I was looking back, our expenses and so forth didn't exceed the 60%, didn't exceed what we're already receiving from the LCFF calculator. So the total reimbursement would have been like 0. So this year looks a little different. So it may work to our advantage.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments?
What happens with the money if we do get the $33,000? Is that restricted funds or?
Yeah, that would go to our transportation department.
It would?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have a need for $33,000? I mean, I agree, there's always a need, but do we have something that?
Yeah, it would definitely help.
Get those cameras working, George.
Honestly, it would definitely help with expenses and so forth, because we do sometimes have to add a contribution to transportation because of their expenditures and salaries and so forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So it would be good.
So these numbers are just transporting our SPED students?
Yes, so it's anyone that works in transportation, so our bus drivers, salaries and so forth, and any expenses related to transportation. That 48,000 is oops. I believe that had to do with a bus because it's capital outlay. So that's why that was deducted. So anything that has to do with it is charged there. So that's all that is for.
And then approving this is really just our plan for the year to continue transporting our SPED students. We're not adding to this or setting up for a big purchase of something.
Oh, no, yeah, it's just approving the plan and then, we'll still carry out transporting our SPED students. Because we really don't have the capacity to transport.
Speaking of big expenditures, how's our new bus coming?
We're in line.
Yeah, any news on
Fall.
fall? Really?
Keep your fingers crossed. Yeah, fall.
And is
So-
that gonna be a sped bus, or is this gonna?
Yeah,
we're
that's,
transporting our students?
Yeah.
We're just gonna just replace or
Yeah.
something?
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So it's exciting.
We have
It's all electric and it's got the really cool ADA
I
compliant.
saw it at the conference.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, wow,
Yeah.
that's so exciting
We
for
got the
those
charging
kids. That's
station.
And we
great.
have the
Just seen
charging
the bus.
stations, so that's awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah. And those have been working out great. Even
Mm.
the charging stations we have right now, everyone's been rotating. It's been working smoothly. So that's awesome.
Everybody's playing nice. so.
Yeah.
And that's a free service?
Well, we charge cost neutral. It's like
Mhm.
35 cents a kilowatt. It's
Okay.
Yeah.
pretty low,
Yeah,
what I understand.
That's good.
I have just a question on some of the language. It says in the first paragraph, I guess, the district will prioritize the transportation of general education students. That we're not adding services. So is that just, and it goes on to say sort of like advocacy around bus passes and expanded route service. Is that what that means in terms of the prioritization? It's more advocacy than services?
Yeah, and that's something Pam's going to reach out to the Metro again and see if there's anything they can do to help with transportation for the rest of our students or, who would ever be interested.
Okay.
The problem last year is the Metro wasn't able to pick up at the right times. So drop off wouldn't work. So by the time the students were picked up, they wouldn't be able to make it to the schools on time. So there's a bunch of, little caveats that kind of make it so it's really hard, even with public transportation.
It still gives them a bus pass, though. I mean, that's pretty useful for students.
Yeah. So she's gonna reach out and see
Yeah.
what they can do and see if we can make something work. Mhm.
Any other questions or comments? All right, another action item. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion to approve the transportation plan.
All right, do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Consider adopting the resolution for borrowing cash from the COE.
So this is another annual resolution every year, this one and the following one. And this is just a safeguard in case the district would happen to need to borrow cash from the COE. We haven't luckily for many years, but again, all districts bring it every single year. So it's a standard resolution.
Questions or comments? We've seen this before.
yeah.
Mhm.
All right, may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution for the district to borrow cash from the Santa Cruz County Office of Education.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, and it's a roll call.
Trustee Edmondson,
Aye.
trustee Dickinson,
Hi.
trustee Donnelly,
Aye.
trustee Jackson Miller. Aye. Trustee Gray.
Aye.
All right, the resolution passes. 7D, consider adopting the resolution to borrow cash from the county treasury.
And again, this is another one that is an annual resolution. And again, we haven't had to borrow cash from the county treasury, but it's a safeguard just in case in the event that we would need to.
All right,
Okay.
questions or comments?
Like borrowing cash from each parent.
Yeah.
Say that.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion to consider adopting the resolution for the district to borrow cash from the county treasury.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, another roll call.
Trustee Edmondson,
Aye.
trustee Dickinson,
Yes.
trustee Donnelly,
Aye.
trustee Jackson Miller. Aye. Trustee Gray.
Aye.
All right, the resolution passes. 7E, consider approval of the second interim budget report for the district.
Okay. Now let's see if I can have both fingers work at the same time. Okay. If you're all ready, let's get started. Okay, so I'll start with this page. And I'll talk about, what is the factors of the multi-year projections are, and then we'll get into numbers after. So that way we're all on the same page. So in terms of the COLA, This year, we know is 8.22%, and we know that's not going to change. For 24-25, we still have the projection of 0.76%, and 25-26 is a 2.73%. There's been a little bit of talk that maybe the COLA will go up a tiny bit, but then again, maybe it'll go down to 0%. And for 25-26, we haven't heard any talk really of that fluctuating. So everyone's kind of been wondering, like, okay, that's interesting. You know, we hear that 24-25 may fluctuate even lower or a tad bit higher, but nothing for 25-26. So I went with the what was on school services and also the common message for the COLA percentages. So in SACS, and you'll see a couple slides down, I had assigned some funds just to kind of have them set aside. That way we can see what they look like in the fund balance in the event that we do use these funds. For instance, I assigned $120,000 for SPED in the event that maybe we have a placement or something. I also increased the contribution next year for SPED about $140,000, being that we have seen an increase from last year to this year of about $200,000 or so. So just so we're on the safe side. But the assigned piece, the 120, is just an assigned and not in the budget. I also assigned $130,000 just in case the COLA does drop to 0%. That way, at least we have it accounted for and we can see what the bottom line would look like. And then the textbook adoption, $200,000. And since these funds were assigned in 24-25 and they're not part of the budget, we have to also make sure we assign them in 25-26. So it reduces the bottom line as it should for both years, because if it reduces it in 24-25 and just assigned and it's not part of the budget, it's not going to reduce it in 25-26 unless you put it in assigned, since it's not budgeted. So as far as ADA, we've seen a slight increase, which is great. In 22-23, we ended with about 91%. As of, I think it was a couple days ago, we're at 93.7%. So that's great. At first interim for 23-24, I had projected 92.73. So for second interim for 23-24, I upped it a little bit to 93.44%. However, that's including the COE SPED. So it's still a little under the 93.44 just for the district. UPC would be our unduplicated pupil count. It came in higher once CalPADS was said and done and everything was finalized. At first interim, it was still projected a little bit lower because they hadn't finished going through all the documentation they needed. And I believe it was about 508. And I didn't want to over project because last year we're at 565. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, we're seeing a lot lower students here qualifying. So I rechecked it at second interim and we're at 585. So for second interim, I went ahead and I increased that to 585. So we'll see an increase of funding in our LCFF because of those two factors. The UPC count went up as well as ADA going up slightly. I use a standard 1.5% first step and column increase for the 2 out years. You'll see there's a reduction in the revenue expenditures in the out year due to fully expensed ESSER funding. So we're going to see a drop there. As far as our SPED estimate that we received from the state, it went up slightly. So at first interim, we're at about 119,000 and we inched up to about 140,000 that we'll be getting for SPED costs. At unaudited actuals, we were looking at about 400,000 we were going to be receiving. So, and it's based on a pool, how many students we have in the program with the COE and as well as the districts around us. And then they kind of divvy it up and they're seeing a lot more students overall as well. So that's what's lowering our funding. And In our 2 out years, beginning next year in 24-25, we have reductions based on attrition to help decrease our deficit spending. That's our major goal. We want to make sure we tighten that gap with deficit spending. So we're making sure that we get ahead of the game and start doing things now and next year instead of waiting for the 3rd year out. And with that, is there any questions on this page?
Would you mind like rephrasing the reductions based on attrition, just to make it a little more understandable what that means?
So anytime if there is a position, like a temporary position, or if somebody were to be resigning or something like that, we wouldn't fill that position. So we would keep it and we would save those funds to increase and decrease our deficit spending and increase our fund balance.
Is that the same thing as a hiring freeze? Is that not a term used in education?
Well, yes and no, because sometimes we look at attrition, you know, because we look at class size too. So
Right.
we say like, okay, can we make our class sizes a little bit smaller? Is this class size gonna be way too small to where we need to, not hire a teacher to fill that slot? So yeah, yes and no, it can go either way.
Okay.
Did that help?
Chime in.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, it is a term that's used. We try to soften a little bit, say it's a hiring pause. We just take an extra look to see like, is that a position that we can do without for a short period of time? And if it is, we work with, our labor groups to make sure that they're partners with us on that. And then in terms of classrooms, obviously declining enrollment.
Mhm.
Although we'd like to have all of our teachers, mathematically declining enrollment, you need fewer full-time equivalency teachers. And so, so reducing FTE for us, fortunately, not having to go to layoff to do that. Layoff would include permanent or probationary employees. It is very hard from a human level. That means that some of our folks on temporary contracts, there's not space for them to come back, and that's where that reduction comes in.
Thank you.
And, I had a question, but go ahead. I didn't quite understand the SPED, the part, yeah. So is it that can you say that maybe in a different way? The part about, SPED, is it more cost? Are we assigning, is it a bigger need?
So
Is the
for which,
money?
the SPED estimated revenue part, or which?
Yeah, and then also the assigned funds. I guess I don't quite understand what's happening with that.
Okay, so for SPED, our SPED program right now out of our regular SPED account is at about $3.5 million. We receive, as a second interim, we're scheduled to receive $143,000. So that's where the estimated SPED revenue comes through. The estimate of 143 comes from the Santa Cruz County Office of Education, and it's through our SELPA. So it's based on a pool of how many students are in the program across the county. And then they take that pool and the amount of money that they're receiving as a whole for the county, then they divvy it up and then disperse it to the counties, or to the districts, I'm sorry. And since there's a higher need for SPED and the county programs and so forth like that, that's why we're seeing less revenue coming in for SPED. When we see less revenues come in for SPED, the general fund then has to contribute more to our SPED program.
That's what I was asking.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. And that's kind of always the case. There's always a deficit with special education.
Yeah. And it's projected that those costs are going to continue to rise too, because, the pandemic.
Yeah, we're
played a
seeing,
big factor.
aren't we seeing like more of a need kind of with students?
Yeah.
And when you mentioned it earlier, sorry, just to add on
Yeah,
to that, when you mentioned sort of the uncertainty around like someone who might need a placement, is there another way of kind of saying that, like what that could potentially look like, where we might, right? A student might have a great need.
Yeah.
In the district, of course. needs to
Yeah.
provide for it, but that could be how much money for an individual student?
It can vary. It can be about like a little bit under 100,000. It depends on where they're placed, right? It can be 120,000. It could be a little bit more. Cost goes up next year. So that's about 120,000 is kind of a good kind of estimate for like one placement if a student would have to be placed in a private type of setting.
And that's what that is, 120,000. You're kind of holding that
Yeah.
in case to see who comes to our district, right?
Yeah, and it
Yeah.
could be somebody that's already in our district.
So that might need it. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Did that make sense?
Totally.
Yeah. Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Ariel, did you?
Yeah, the last one about how the out years reflects reductions, is that the 9, Scott, that you've been working on, or what is the number that is already baked in to these numbers?
Yeah, it's roughly like 9 FTE,
Okay.
so forth, but that's between both unrestricted and restricted.
Okay.
So it's kind of a share between the two. And again, this is second interim. When we get into budget development, which is gonna be next week, then we'll start looking at everything again closer and seeing exactly like where we are and where we need to go, so.
If it helps with that unrestricted and restricted part, we had a program we called Integrated Arts at the elementary that was all funded by one-time money, right? So that's kind of one pot.
Yeah.
Of, and then the other positions are, classroom positions that we're reducing based on declining enrollment.
Yeah.
What's our current student teacher ratio? Would you say?
Well, we have to maintain in TK, so I'll give you by grade spans. Because in TK, it has to be capped at 20 because we allow our younger students to come join us. So implementation of the universal TK requires that it's a 10-to-1 adult to student ratio, 10-to-1. And so we reach that 10-to-1 with one teacher and one aide, and the classroom's capped at 20. In K through 3, we have to maintain a 24-to-1 average. So 24 students to one teacher. Some classes may have 26, some may have 22. And part of our equation this year, not to go too far into the weeds, but we like to give some cushion in that number. This year, we're trying to not have a cushion, right? Because we're really trying to max out on the budget side, right? And then 28 is the number for 4th and 5th grade. When classes are over 28, part of our contract is that teachers get a little bit of an additional payment for those students over 28. And then middle school, it's staffed at 24-to-1. Of course, the classes aren't at 24-to-1 because they have that prep period baked in. So, and then it varies by subject. Sometimes PE will be naturally larger by design and math will be smaller by design, but a typical class somewhere in the 25 range at that grade level.
Are we pretty standard with these? I mean, it sounds like we kind of hold to these, and I think I'm just looking at this as, and I understand the budget constraints. I mean, as a parent, I know what I hear a lot is, how do we get, less students and more teachers and lower that ratio as much as possible. And I understand the budget constraints that we're under right now. And especially with the hiring freeze, but is there any possibility that we can, keep teachers and or even, I don't know if hiring anybody new, but so we can advance that student teacher ratio, if I'm making any sense?
You make sense, yeah. And so I'll try to keep it on the budget perspective, since that's the item, is that this year more than ever, the tightening our fiscal belts is the #1 priority, right? And so while programmatically, we could definitely make a logical argument for smaller class sizes, this year more than ever, we're looking to tap out those ratios, those allowable ratios, because it's going to reduce FT and it's going to keep us fiscally solvent. And so you could have two different views on that, but this year more than ever, it's really the fiscal side that is driving that. I think we'll continue to find ways to retain and recruit our staff. But right now, maxing out on those numbers I just like to be frank, like that is the driving force.
I get the budget side. I'm just always turning it up an opportunity to,
Yep.
yeah.
And I should say, I think I said 25 for middle school. They're 25 to 30. I don't want somebody watching thinking, where's my class of 25? So.
You said 24. So now it's.
To one ratio.
Staff.
Staff. Because they get a prep period and that brings the ratio down. That part's definitive, the 24 to 1. That's what we staff on.
And the actual is 25 to 30.
Yeah.
Okay, next page.
Great questions. Bobby.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Funny. Oh, it's live with my thing. I highlighted, that was my note in yellow. Okay, I thought we downloaded it and, okay. That caught me by surprise. I'm on, why is it? Okay, so in yellow, Ariel brought this to my attention. I had scooted over the COLAs. So in 23-24, it should be 8.22, 24-25 should be 0.76, and 25-26, it's the 2.73%. All the figures are correct. It was just the COLA when I entered them. I was off a year. So this is what we're looking at with our LCFF revenue. You'll see that for 23-24, we're up a little bit compared to first interim, which is great. So since our ADA, our attendance is increasing slightly in 23-24, and our unduplicated pupil count also went up for 23-24. It helped us in our out years. We're increased our out years in 24-25 and 25-26 because of the 3-year rolling average and so forth. Because it looks at the 3 prior years. So we did see an increase in all 3 years. You'll see the federal funds, they do drop just like as projected in first interim due to the ESSER funding coming to an end. Our state funding is going to stay fairly flat. We're not going to see that much of an increase there, as well as our local revenue and so forth, which is, you know, donations, rentals, apportionment, interest, and so forth. And then we also have our transfers in. So this comes from capital facilities, and this goes into deferred maintenance to help with any of those costs that for deferred maintenance. Any questions?
The question.
Sure.
So on the LCFF revenue, it takes the 3-year average of the UPC and the ADA. Does it take the trend, or it's just takes the average?
There's 3 prior years. Yeah, so it looks at the 3 prior years and it averages them out, and that's what it gives you for your ADA estimate for the current year.
Is our average trending up or down? So,
Well, that's where it
I
gets
mean,
a
are the
little
years
tricky.
trending up or down? So is the average in the right direction?
Well, where it gets tricky is we had a couple years right out of the pandemic
Yeah.
where there are like hold harmless years. So the ADA really didn't change. They kept us with the prior year ADA, which was higher for some years. And so that was still kind of part of the average. So when we get to 25-26, that's when we're seeing our true ADA with what our ADA actually was for the prior 3 years. It wasn't anything that was hold harmless or anything that was slightly inflated because of the hold harmless. And so that's why we see a little bit of a drop and more of a drop in 25-26. So basically we're trending, to answer your question regarding trending going forward, yes, we're going in the right direction. But prior to, yeah. Thank you. I know that's where we, you know, would hope that we would be funded differently, but.
How are you trending the ADA? I mean, is that expected? I mean, obviously, we've done a great job. You guys have done a great job bringing it up to where it is right now. Are you continuing that trend and you're going to see it keep rising? And what do you expect the cap to be?
Yeah, so for the next 2 out years, I'm projecting 93.7% and 94.18%. I didn't want to over project because I don't want to anticipate revenue that we may not see. So I'm trying to say, you know, as close as I can, but bumping it a little bit to what we're seeing now to play it safe. And
And
then
then before COVID, what was a standard number?
We were just over 90. I'm sorry. Dan.
No, go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead, Kizzy.
We look at that so often.
He's proud. Yeah, getting back.
We had, for 4 years in a row, we had increased bit by bit, a few tenths of a percentage point every year, so we were up to 95.3.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
Okay.
but I appreciate that you're factoring conservatively. No.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
94 is, yeah, it's conservative. That sounds good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and if we do see an uptick, then I'll kind of change it slightly to kind of balance out and so forth, but I didn't want to, project too high.
And then just because it's up again, did I hear you say that we have a higher unduplicated person count now?
Pupil count. So last year we're at 565. And then this year, when everything was all said and done, we came in about 20 students higher, so we're at 585.
The denominator got small.
Yeah,
Total percentage, students, the percentage.
Yeah, and that's why at first interim, I was conservative based on the 100 kids we lost in enrollment. So I'm like, okay, so if we lost 100 kids, we have to see a drop in our UPC number, and so that's why I went with what I had at the time,
Yeah.
because I didn't want to overstate. So
Mhm.
yeah, I was happy to see it at 585.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Moving over. So here's a picture of what our unrestricted side of the house looks like. So this is where we get most of our local funding. This is where our LCFF funding goes. So this is our attendance, our supplemental concentration, which is what our unduplicated pupil count generates, all right here. So you can see what our budget amount was, our expenses, what the deficit spending is in red right there. You see our beginning balance and then the ending balances. So this also, even though we're still working on the salary increase and it's going to be hitting at the end of this month, this factors in with our increase. So this is a reflection of what the increase looks like. So after the ending balance or in the middle there, you'll see the reserve, the 13.18% in current year, and then going over 10.58 and 6.9%. So when you go right under there, you'll see the assigned amounts. So that 450 and 24-25, that's tied into the 120, the 130, and the 200,000 that we saw on the MYP for a SPED, COLA, and textbooks. So when we factor that in, that is then I deducted it from the ending fund balance. That way it would project what the new percentage would be if all of those were to come into play. If we were to spend all of that 450 for the needs that were listed, that would bring our reserve to 8.67%. Now, if we didn't spend all of that, that number would change. And then the same thing for 25, 26. You'll see without the assigned, we're at 6.9%. And then with the assigned, that has to be carried over again if it was spent in 24, 25. So it reflects, would be 4.95%.
Thanks for doing that.
And again, this is, projections. And like I said, we're working on how to tighten things. So this, can change. The school budgets is forever changing target.
What's kind of the danger percentage for our reserves? Like when does it, at what point do you say, okay,
Well, 3% is what is required by the state.
Right.
So that's the minimum we can go. So,
but do you have a number that,
well, like, around 4%, that's where we need to really start looking. And that's where we are already kind of addressing that. We want that to be tightened up by the time we get there.
Right.
And so that's what we're working on.
your number for the $200,000 in the yearbook, in the textbooks, is that something that we've already identified that we need? Or is that something that you are projecting that based on history that every 5 years we need new textbooks and that's the amount? Or have you already taken a look and we need these textbooks? This is where we're, okay. Are we really outdated with some of our textbooks? I mean, it's like we need them, it's time.
I mean, it's a whole nother topic that we could definitely put on another agenda, but I would say that there is a level of interest we have and some frameworks that are changing that we need to attend to.
Okay.
Is there an assigned amount that we should consider for 25-26? So in addition to the 450 that's carryover from 24-25?
At this point, I didn't really see a need for it, because just for instance, like the textbooks. Maybe we won't find something we're gonna adopt in 24-25, so maybe we'll end up doing it in 25-20. This is just an example.
How long it takes.
So then that would kind of change everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it changed the
But what
dynamic.
about the COLA piece? Because the COLA is 2.73,
Uh-huh.
which is not insignificant. And so if it isn't that much, what does that do to the bottom line in 25-26?
Depending on which way it goes, to be honest, I mean, and that's the tricky one, the 25-26, because nobody's really talking about 25-26. I was in my big meeting today, and that's a topic that came up. No one's really saying anything that 25-26 is going to fluctuate. So we're not 100% sure. However, it would be the same thing. So when we get into next year's budget, I would analyze 25-26 and see, okay, are we gonna have to set more aside and what we're gonna have to do at that time? Being the right now, 25-26 is our third year. Next year, I'm really gonna have to reassess it and see if there's anything we should be putting aside. And hopefully by then we'll have some information, although it won't be solid, regarding the COLA. Yeah.
Which is really tough because it's all I can do not to say what's going to happen in 26
Yeah.
and 27 because we're minus, 6% and then minus 4%. And if we take anywhere near that, we're at a 1% reserve or less
So here's
for the
what's
following year.
Here's what's interesting. So I was kind of playing with the numbers in the calculator, and I did go out to 26-27. And the projected COLA for 26-27 is 3.11%. And I kind of went with the same trend with the ADA and so forth. And it's coming up about $300,000 or $400,000 higher based on the factors that they have for Prop 98 slightly increasing and so forth. So that was interesting to see because of course, I was thinking the same thing you're thinking. I'm gonna say, okay, what does 26-27 look like? So, but again, we're looking at all of this and we're making sure that we are doing corrective measures before and anywhere we can.
With that COLA, what would our reserve be at?
I didn't throw it into my other spreadsheet. I just looked to see what the funding would be. I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to drop even further, and it actually went up.
Okay.
So that was kind of exciting for me. It's the little things.
It's not the way I thought that was going to go, so that's
Well,
great.
Yeah, I mean, but there's also other factors too. I mean, we got to think about enrollment and so forth too. So that's why we're on this. We had new signs made that were bigger, so they're easier to read. We put them at Emerald. We put one at Emerald Bay for the gardens, and we put other ones up too. So and then word of mouth. Everyone's trying to promote our school and our schools and so forth. So we're trying to get the word out. So. Okay.
Just to understand that assigned, whoops, I made it big, the assigned number, the 450,
Yes.
and then to go back to what it's made of, the
Uh-huh.
130 difference of 0.76 and a 0 COLA, is that what you're anticipating if the COLA is 0 or
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
Okay.
so in case in the event the COLA dropped to 0, it's about $130,000 difference.
Okay,
So that's
and that's
why-
part of that 450.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so if it doesn't drop, then we wouldn't need to keep
Yeah.
it assigned.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
And this is our did I not move on one side? Nope, hold on one second. Am I on the right page? Yeah. So this is our projected budget. So restricted is, pretty much, one-time funding. It's our title funding, lotteries and restricted. Anything other than basically our LCF dollars and our interest and so for fees, any local funding. So with this isn't calculated into our reserve percentage. It's only our total expenditures with our unrestricted ending fund balance. That's how we get our reserve percentage. So restricted is pretty much expected to be spent down because a lot of those restricted funds are their fund balance. So they fall down into your ending fund balance as they did. And that's why you'll see the beginning fund balances are higher. And then you do see deficit spending, and then all of the ending fund balances are still looking good. Because we do have some of those, the one-time fundings that are falling out and so forth. And so this chart, for me. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of what the amount of salaries, our percentage for unrestricted on the unrestricted side of the house compared to all of our expenditures on just the unrestricted side of the house. And we're about at 88.9%. And historically, we run about 87 to 90% for salaries and benefits. So we're on the same track there. And then you can see that, you know, books and supplies, our contracted services, you know, are always on the higher side compared to books and supplies and so forth. Okay. So going forward, we need to continue to increase ADA. A big thank you to all of our principals. They've been doing a great job by, you know, promoting, you know, coming to school and doing little incentives, which, you know, the kids, it's obviously working. They're looking forward to it. So kudos to them. And then like what we've been talking about in cabinet and other settings is promoting our schools by letting people know what we offer, like SAGE, DLI, what we have in our ELOP programs, like we have cheerleading and so forth. We don't have, I don't know of another district that has cheerleading. So things like that, just so that way people are like, okay, I want to check out those programs. I want to go see, and maybe that's how we can drum up some attendance. Continue our to reduce our deficit spending again with attrition. And then what will help reduce our deficit spending. And this year we still have about $200,000 of ESSER funding that isn't allocated for 23-24. Those funds have to be spent by 9/30 of 24. So we can utilize those funds to offset general fund expenses, and that'll help with our ending fund balance. So that's not baked into our budget right now. When we get closer to the end of the year, I will review everything and then I will make that transition, and then we'll see some savings there. So that's a good thing. We want to continue to meet with our fiscal prioritization team so that we can talk about all this stuff and come up with plans together and see what works for everyone and the district. And then we also have learning loss recovery and our arts and music discretionary block grant. So that the arts and music discretionary block grant is different from Prop 98. So with the two of those, we have about 1.7 million. So that too will help us in our out years. That'll help with some general fund expenses that we can put into those two funding areas, because those are on the restricted side of the house. So that'll free up our general fund money. So that's what we're going to analyze and see what we can move over there for 24, 25 and 25, 26. The arts and music discretionary block grant, that one expires in 6/30 of 26. So we have to be fully expended by 2026. And the learning loss recovery goes a couple years further. So that goes to 6/30 of 28. And again, just a reminder, I know Jessica does a great job with Prop 28 funds, talking about plans and stuff. That is ongoing, and we'll be seeing about $220,000 for Prop 28.
Do we have a plan for that one?
Yes.
Now that we've had a job description.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it, you know?
Yeah. So all in all, like we're doing, we're just taking the correct steps, to prepare, like, for the drop in COLA and, the steady reduced COLA. And looking at everything we can possibly look at. And then when we go have our fiscal prioritization meeting, we'll continue those talks and go from there. So. Any other questions?
I'm not sure if this is the right forum for this, and Scott will probably tell me no, but yeah, we've done some work with some other school districts at the TV stations, and some of the different districts are looking like at adult programs because of ADA. And I'm just curious, and like I said, it's probably not the right forum for this, but it's budgeting, and I don't know, but is that something we might be able to look at? We, especially with English language learners, it's possible parents, we could do language classes, or I don't know, some sort of adult learning to help increase our funding and our revenue at the schools.
Oh,
I'm not
it
sure.
seems connected to me.
Okay.
And so short answer is, well, we have offered some of that, and especially English or second language learning parents.
Right.
We have offered that, but it's not designed to be a revenue producer. It's designed to work with, community and provide that, for parent support.
It might be helping both, yeah.
Adult ed in other capacities tends to be something for high school districts, right? Because the students continue on from high school. But there's nothing that I know of for a K-8 district to pursue for that to be a revenue producer. When we do it, it's for community service and supporting families.
Right, we'd still have to pay the teachers to teach it, and the staff and the room and the maintenance.
Yeah, and we partner with other agencies sometimes who contribute to that. And so try to get it to be as cost neutral as possible. Sometimes it's not, I like providing childcare or something we pitch in for, but closer to cost neutral.
Okay. Yeah.
Good idea. And who knows, if ever something comes across, we'll be open to it. I'm just trying to be realistic in the current
No,
reality.
appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah.
This is not a question, if this is an option time, but it's a comment on the presentation itself. I want to thank you, and I find the format that you're presenting in really, really helpful, and it is, I know we've got all of our very, very important mandatory SACS reports, et cetera, in a very small font that's a little hard for me to understand, even though I've been doing this for almost 10 years, and so I am really appreciating the slides with the spreadsheets, if that you're laying out for us in a different way, because I think getting information in multiple ways is really, really helpful. Yeah. But okay. Slow sound outside. Thank you. It's really clear.
Oh,
And I appreciate that. I appreciate the way you're presenting the information. And,
well, thank you. I appreciate that. Oh, I hear what you're saying about SACS because it's so confusing, because sometimes I'll be flipping through and I'm like, wait a second, why is that number there? I'm like, oh, that's the wrong line. It's like way down here. Yeah. So it's very confusing.
So many pages, and there's some stuff that's duplicated, and it's like,
yes,
it's important, and I read it, but the way you've presented it in your report makes a little more sense to me. So thank you.
You're welcome. I appreciate that.
I want to second that. I find your reports really easy to understand, the color coding and the numbers. So yeah, thank you for that.
I'll jump on the bandwagon. I mean, this is great. I've been, a couple of years of doing it. Yeah, it's neat.
This is not our day job, so thank you for right when we hop in for the number of hours that we do. Like, we appreciate the education.
I have a question about the arts music discretionary block grant. And then, of course, I'm thinking of the Prop 28 and what we're moving towards with our new VAPA position. Did I kind of hear you right that we're going to be leaning more on the discretionary part of that versus putting that into arts or music?
No.
To try to cover up the budget?
Well, no, because there could be positions, or there could be expenses moved that qualify that still fall under the arts and music that are in general fund that we can move over to that one-time funding. So then it would offset the general fund.
think the other point with that too is that Prop 28 funds are constitution guaranteed and ongoing.
Yeah.
And that block grant is one time.
Yeah,
And so doing anything around staff with one-time funds is always
yeah,
risky and tricky at best. And so having it set aside this way allows, as we monitor all these other data points as the other budget is going, it's nice to have that available if needed.
Yeah.
So.
How long is that for, that discretionary block?
that one goes to 6:30 of 26. And then the learning loss goes to 6:30 of 28.
26. That's still
Yeah.
a chunk of time.
Yeah.
Get it going with our new VAPA program.
Mhm.
But it's not, I mean, it's a pot of money and that's
And that's
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna grow. It's just, we have to
Yeah.
divide that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like if we, as we're getting the VAPA program off the ground, like, does it make sense then using that money for supplies, things that aren't salaries? Is that what I'm understanding? Or, I mean, just as an idea?
Yeah,
It could, I mean,
Yeah,
I
it could
think
be.
that'll be us working with staff. I think we'll try to optimize Prop 28 first.
Okay,
That being discretionary
Yeah.
as part of it, that's a very valuable block to hold on to if we don't have to use it.
Got it.
So that's always
Yeah,
budgeting 101, right?
Yeah.
It's your most
Yeah.
unrestricted form.
yeah.
understood.
Any other questions or comments? No. All right. Golly, is that it? Is that the whole report?
Of course.
Okay.
to approve?
So this is, approving, and this is, Jen, this is not a resolution. All right, so may I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. To approve the second interim budget report.
All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, thanks. Thank you all.
Nothing on email.
All right, no correspondence. Any future agenda items? You can always email. All right, adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. The meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
everybody.
Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you to take your squishies
Yeah.
with you.
That's right, I was-
If you feel stressed later, you just take.
I think my
one of those.